Back then, back then, Filipinos tended to be underpaid tremendously. The farmers did not want to pay us what we thought our labor was worth, and many times they tried to cheat us. They had no respect for Filipinos working in the fields. All we were basically was cheap labor. The only time they respected us was when we decided to walk off and let their crops rot in the fields. And that's when they started paying attention to who we were and what our needs were. We didn't get everything that we wanted, but we got a lot of what we needed. The old men, the Manongs, when they struck, they were striking for just a few cents more because every penny, every dollar that they earned was going to help them survive through the winter time. And one of the major things about strikes, you never break that picket line if you're a Filipino and your friends are on that picket line, because someday they're going to need your support or you're going to need their support. So you always respect it.
At the time the strike started, I was only 12 years old, so I was of a typical Filipino family. What you followed your parents, and they did something, you did it too. I went to the meetings, and on this day of the strike, I went with my dad to the field. And the workers, as I mentioned earlier, dated to a group, and you saw would pick for hours and then leave the grapes on the ground. It's 107, 108, 110 degrees. And I sat with my dad, and then I did work that he asked me to do during that morning. And then he went and honked the horn. And everybody left the field. We got in the buses and got in our cars and left. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, who's gonna pack the grapes that we left on the ground? Because I didn't comprehend as a 12-year-old what we were doing, how we were doing it. And he said to me, maybe they'll sign a contract tomorrow. That's 5 years we waited. So why did I join the boycott? Filipinos don't quit. That strike could have been 10 years. We would have still been on a picket line. Why did we win? The rest of the country came to believe in us. Why? We didn't lie, we told the truth. When we got hurt on picket lines, we didn't hurt the people that came against us with sticks. We knelt and bowed our heads and prayed, and the violence stops. You follow what your heart tells you is true. Following my parents, I knew this was true. I did what they did.
I too was inspired by my father, who said, we're leaving the field that day. We worked for Jamara Farms, and there was this loud ruckus of people saying, well, walk out and come on out, brothers and sisters. And he said, come on, well, we're leaving. And I was saying, we're leaving? I mean, you know, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's not even lunchtime. But he said, we're leaving. And I remember leaving the ranch that day, and that there were all these Filipinos that were out on the streets. And, you know, I had to have my father explain what was going on, and how he told me that they were striking so that they could have a better wage. And I remember, you know, I was kind of, you know, as a young kid, I was kind of scared because of the crowd, but inside I was kind of like really excited about that civil disobedience, the first time that I had been exposed to that. So that was the most important thing to me on that particular day.
Yeah, like John says, I was young and I kind of was taken to the excitement of the event. I mean, it was not normal to find my mom and dad home after school. It ruined my afternoon because I was all set to watch the cartoons, have a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and then I can't do that stuff because mom and dad are home. But you know what? I could sense that they knew the cause was right. They absolutely knew the cause was right, but they were scared. They were scared. And I can just remember the tension in the dinner, over the dinner conversations and stuff. It was very difficult, but they knew it was right, and I knew that it was right because my mom and dad said so.
For the next question is, how did you support the strike, support examples, or, I know, what were your best recollections of the strike, what you call it, a march, or just share a story? Because I know some of you have already given some stuff, so just share a story if you have one.
Okay, thanks, Herb. I was in high school. I was a senior. I just worked in the fields a week before. Anyway, when the strike started, I supported emotionally and spiritually because I knew we were being underpaid. But it took a toll on our family, and it took a toll on my dad especially. We had the store. And what we did is, the strike didn't last a week, months. It lasted for years. I mean, lots of years, 3, 4, 5 years. And what it did to the store is it, when the Manongs didn't have enough money, we would give the Filipinos, the Manongs, and the Filipino families, like 4 or 5, the Mestizo families are just as big. And there are 4, 5, 6 kids in the family. That's your standard family size. And what we did at the store is that we gave them utang's credit with no interest. We just, okay, Manong, you just pay us when you get the money. Well, we knew doggone well that a lot of them were on strike, but my dad gave it anyway. So that was one thing that hurt the store. And it drove my dad, it made him worried. But the other thing, too, is the camps were closing. And then, so we couldn't deliver to the camps. So we were hurting both ways. And so he was always in turmoil. He was always worried about how we're going to pay the bills and stuff. So in a way, it killed him. Before we signed the contract with Jamara, my dad passed away. It took a toll on him. And in a sense, we supported the strike in a big way. And I want to, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it worked out. But the toll was devastating to my family.
Once the strike started, I was only going to be here until about the 21st of September. So during the time frame I was here, I was asked to be on the picket line. That's where I did. But something really struck me was I was in Da Nang and we were getting some fresh food. And when I got a box from the Salinas Valley, Bud Antel, and my uncle's field crew, one of my uncles up there had a field crew, and he had a unique way of signing off on the side of the boxes for the packs, for the lettuce that they packed. And I saw it. Here I was, 5,000 miles away, and I got a box of lettuce from Salinas. Then a few days later, we got a box of grapes from California, but it wasn't from Delano, and that's when I realized that, the food that we're eating is packed by workers in California. It's packed by people who don't have the power to do anything. So I told myself that one day I would try to tell their story because no one else was going to do it. And I'll follow on later and tell you how I learned how to tell that story.
Earlier today, you heard that the strike was called, the growers were not going to answer, the growers were not going to negotiate. We were in the camp, 10 miles out of Delano, 120 workers living in the camp. Me, my mom, my dad. We had a house in town, but we lived at the camp during the week. Within 10 to 15 days, and we'd lived there, some of the men had lived in that camp for 25 years. And it was a really nice camp. You saw some pictures today in the video of sort of really dilapidated camps. Ours wasn't like this. It was all painted and kept really up to date, and air conditioning, swamp coolers and all that, because my dad was not going to allow where the workers lived to be a bad place. But then they turned the electricity off, unannounced, just gone. The water off, the gas off. How do 125 people live at a place they've lived at for years? And now you can't drink, you can't go to the bathroom, you can't take a shower, there's no lights, you can't cook. we're Filipinos. You dig a hole in the ground and you barbecue. That's what we did. We still had meat. It was still in the walk-in refrigerator. So for a few days, we started just barbecuing everything we had and making a fire and barbecue and making vegetables. And then they sent somebody to kick dirt in our food.
An important lesson. You know that I was 14 and pretty dumb little kid, but I recognized the merging of the two groups of people. You had the Filipinos and the Mexicans. That because of that, because of the leaders who saw the importance of that happening, a monumental first labor contract for farm workers was signed. That would have never happened. So the idea that people have got to come together, they have to organize, and because I was half Filipino, there was a coming together in me too, a real peace. So it was kind of like a puzzle coming together for me.
God, it just dawned on me that I was there with my mom when we went to H&B Market. And my mom had to ask Mang Berino, Roger's dad, for an extension for payment for groceries. It was not something that we normally did. And I just knew and sensed the failure that my mom felt, not being able to fulfill her financial commitments to that situation, and it's because of the strike. And the other memory was my dad coming back from the picket line, and he had been promised that there would be compensation for marching. And he came home to my mom, and that same beaten attitude. He told her that the compensation for picketing was $5 a week, and he was crestfallen. And that was the beginning of the end of their participation in the strike. They went back within 3 weeks. So.